You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Today, we're going to talk about community. We all know community matters. We know convenience matters. That's the name of this podcast. But what we want to focus on is how do you stand out in the community? And by that, I mean, how do you literally stand out in terms of what you look like and what you deliver? And for that conversation today, we're going to be once again joined by Akhtar Hussain, who is Director of Refined Fuels Marketing with Cenex. And we're going to talk about how they put community first and foremost, because that's what their customers want. So welcome to the program today, Akhtar.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And for those who are new to the podcast, let's just start out with telling us a little bit about what Cenex is and some of the things that you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, my name is Akhtar Hussain. I've worked at CHS for about 15, 16 years, all of which have been in the retail refined fuels space. And so I've had the opportunity to see some of the ebbs and flows and some of the changes in consumer expectations as it relates to convenience stores and how they represent in their communities. Right now, Cenex is in the middle of a 4-year initiative named LIFT. And LIFT is a lighting, image, and facility transformation project that's designed to revamp Cenex stores through both exterior and interior improvements. And what is unique about the LIFT initiative and how our Cenex marketers can engage with it is really the freedom and the flexibility for them to make improvements to their stores based upon what they see as the most valuable or the most impactful improvements that would best serve their community. And so, as I mentioned, there are really two components to LIFT, which is number one, the introduction of the halo image, which is our forecourt image that includes adding LED lighting elements to the canopy and to the forecourt, putting up new Cenex price signage, pretty much all new dispenser graphics. So really making the exterior of our locations stand out with consumers and really deliver that safe, bright, modern, appealing look that we know consumers are looking for. But we also realize that being a good steward in the community and providing the type of infrastructure out there, the type of stores out there that consumers are really going to respond to, it certainly goes deeper than having bright, appealing branding on the outside of the store. The inside of the store also has to meet these evolving consumer demands. And those changes may be things like just the condition of the store itself, having modern and new food service programs and the quality and fresh foods that consumers want, as well as just modernizing the interior with digital menu boards and ability to have cashierless checkout and some more of those technological advancements that we've seen. So lots of things to contemplate here as we looked at what we were going to include in LIFT, but I think that is very indicative of the nuance and the type of expectations that the consumers have grown to have from their neighborhood convenience store.
We, in April, we had our NACS State of the Industry Summit where we looked at industry numbers, industry trends, all these things going on, and it was kicked off by our chairman. And one of the things that he said is he is confident that over the last 3 years, there has been more change in the industry than the previous decade. So change has happened rapidly, and the way it's been defined is that's what customers want. They expect something not just new, but new and almost immediately comfortable. So that the idea about bringing something that feels like there's self-checkout, there's things like that. Those are all new. But if you can bring it in a way of comfort, it seems like you might have a better chance of really having the customer embrace it. And I assume that's a big part of how Lyft takes it to the street.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And as much as we like to look at the pandemic and COVID related things in the rearview mirror, which I personally am certainly one of those people, they spurred a lot of change. That period of time spurred a lot of change in the minds of consumers. And consumers had to really decide where they were going to do their shopping, what stores they were going to rely on in a safe and convenient manner. And I think that even beyond or before the pandemic, these consumer changes were already on the precipice, right? They were already beginning to evolve. But I really think that this time of working from home, of not being in school, of, social distancing, all of these things that we've been talking so much about over the past 2 years, I think that they acted as a catalyst for the change that was probably underway beforehand. And, what we've seen in our research coming out of the pandemic is that consumers see their local convenience store as a place that they depend on. And I think that dependence has grown in scope in terms of what the consumers can expect or should expect from their local stores. And so we certainly see this as an opportunity to bring additional relevance to the Cenex brand of convenience stores and make sure that we're using this opportunity of evolving consumer preference to include those things in the remodels and the updating that we're doing to our stores. And we've mentioned a few of those, but there has just been an immense amount of interest in addressing certain segments of the stores from the interior perspective. Again, like adding self-checkouts, like making sure we have modern food choices, not just that are tasty, but that also are healthy. We've seen an increase in digital menu boards, not just digital menu boards, but the ability to order through an app, have curbside delivery. So all of these things are kind of being melded together into a common consumer expectation. And that consumer expectation exists whether they're visiting a fast food restaurant, a pharmacy, a convenience store, even a grocery store. So we need to make sure that we are evolving to meet that changing need. Or we may see what life is like if we don't change. And that's something that we didn't want to do. In thinking about all the fantastic stores that I've been able to see as part of this project, one of them's coming to mind. And that store is a project we did in Wahpeton, North Dakota. They have had a long-standing store there. It served the community well. But when we launched the Lyft initiative, the timing of that, as well as the owners of this store knowing that they had to make some changes, that timing really worked out well. And so, this Wahpeton store that used to just be kind of your traditional, I've got some pop, I've got some sandwiches in the cooler, that sort of store, really morphed itself into just this fantastic community resource. There's a Caribou Coffee with super attractive signage out there that lets everybody know they can stop for a high quality cup of coffee. They included a gathering space and sort of an interior eating space so that folks that go in and order from their quick serve retail have a comfortable, brightly lit, clean place to sit and eat their food and visit with others. There's automatic doors so that you don't have, carrying a bag in and out. That becomes much easier. And despite it, well, not despite, but in addition to the bright exterior with the new halo image and the new LED canopy downlighting, we're seeing that same impact being taken forward inside the store with brightly lit category signage, brand new bathrooms, all the amenities that consumers have come to expect. And we don't have scientific, sort of measurements at this point in terms of what this improvement in the store has done to sales. But we do know, at least from a foot traffic perspective, the foot traffic has increased 3 to 4 times what this store was doing prior to this remodel.
Well, I would say that what you just talked about is reflected in the April NACS magazine. We did a cover story where we went through some consumer insights and we asked them all kinds of things, largely gas prices. But one of the questions we asked near the end was, here's a whole bunch of things that have either been popularized by technology or by the pandemic. Things like home delivery, curbside, app checkout in ordering, and self-checkout. And the two things that you mentioned just a minute ago, app ordering and self-checkout were number 1 and number 2 in what consumers wanted. And I think that's really great news because it's a little easier to execute those cost-wise than what was further down the list, which is delivery. And I know we've talked about delivery as something that people want, but I think in a lot of communities, delivery may be nice. It's very expensive, very labor intensive. And of course, there's issues with getting labor. But you talked about a community gathering place and just coming in, hanging out, still feeling like it's convenient, but it's at your speed. So hitting on things like app ordering and then hanging out, that feels fast if you want it to be fast. Self-checkout, and then hanging out is fast if you want it to be. And then you can, treat the store however you want. But the good news is people want to go to the store. And when people want to go to the store, it's a place to hang out. So finding ways to differentiate yourself from the moment they see your store on the side of the road till they come back to your store, hopefully the next day, I think that's a big deal. And those enhancements through Lyft, I think are speaking right to the direction that we're hearing customers want to go.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that the other portion of this is, again, going back to that flexibility, the fact that not one project, as we look at all the Lyft projects that we've done at Cenex locations, hundreds at this point, with 1,000 more on the way, they are all different, and so Cenex is a brand well known for its prominence in rural communities, and the dynamic of rural communities is a little different than the dynamic of first ring suburbs or inner city convenience stores. We do still have some of those, right? So I think that as our store operators, as Cenex marketers, are looking at how do they best serve their communities, some of them are looking at how do I integrate delivery? How do I have speedy curbside checkout? Because they are in more of an urban environment and that home delivery is more important. However, when you think about a place like Wahpeton, North Dakota, or some of the other more rural areas that the Cenex brand serves, they do want that community hangout. They do want this safe place to be able to go and eat their food and have a cup of coffee. And so I think that it speaks to the uniqueness of the Cenex network. It also just speaks to the flexibility that we're giving our marketers in how they go about rebuilding their stores.
And of course, marketers know their market the best, and having that flexibility where maybe you're near a certain company headquarters, or maybe it's in as you were describing, the different demographics, if it's a rural or if it's a more urban setting. And that gets to the heart of just another survey point I'd like to touch upon and get your reaction. We also in the NACS magazine looked at, and of course, people care about gas prices now that gas prices they hit a record this spring. They're very high. They're always too high in people's minds. But when we asked people, what would you do? Would you drive 5 minutes out of your way to save 5 cents a gallon? And 64% said, yes, I would do that. But 10 points higher, 74% said they would drive 5 minutes out of their way to go to the store they like. And the store they like, it's a very nebulous term, but it means how do you serve their needs? Are you fast? Do you provide those healthy options? Do you provide that tasty, fresh food? And that's the opportunity that any brand has to really talk to customers and say, hey, we get you. We get this market, and we have something that is very innovative across the country, and we can bring it to small towns, we can bring it to big towns, and that strikes me as one of the core benefits of the LIFT initiative and partnering on something like this.
Yeah, I think that, obviously we've seen a lot of volatility in the price of fuel, as well as many other common household needs, food, travel, all kinds of things. There's price volatility in the market. I think that we've, especially in the convenience store industry and selling fuel, that volatility is something that we've had to learn to deal with. It's never happy when the price goes high. However, we need to continue to be delivering on those consumer expectations, even when they may not be thrilled about the price they're paying at the pump. And so what does that mean? It means that it's incumbent upon convenience store retailers, specifically ones that care about longstanding relevance, to be the place of choice, right? If people are coming to Cenex gas stations because they're convinced they can get the cheapest price on gas, then as soon as they're not the cheapest, that means we lose that customer, right? We lose that consumer. We need to make sure that the experience that consumers are having at Cenex locations is a positive one. One that, to your statistic here, shows that even amidst price volatility and high fuel prices, that the Cenex brand is going to continue to be the brand of choice. And I think the LIFT initiative sits underneath that perfectly. It's all about making the stores a place of choice, a destination of choice. Again, whether that be some of these, these exterior remodels that we're doing, that's adding all the lighting elements and again, really modernizing that brand from that image perspective. But also all of the in-store improvements that we're seeing in everything from remodeled bathrooms and countertops to the addition of reach-in coolers and quick serve restaurants and all of the things that we've been talking about on the call up to this point. Now, I will say that the way that CHS and the Cenex brand has approached the LIFT initiative is differentiating in the market. The Cenex brand is much like other major oils in the sense that it's a franchise type relationship with the store owner, where the Cenex brand has control over the fuel and the presentation of that fuel, but the store owner operates the store. And so it was a pretty differentiating idea to offer this financing to get these in-store projects completed because CHS and the Cenex brand doesn't own those assets, right? Those are assets that are locally owned by business owners in the community. And so we're giving those business owners the opportunity to leverage the strength of the Cenex brand on the forecourt and on the price sign, but by also giving them the resources to make sure that the interiors of their stores and the improvements in their interiors are requisite with the improvements we're making on the outside of the store. So clearly, from the Cenex brand perspective, we hope that translates into more fuel sales. But I think on top of that, we know that it's not just high quality fuel and an attractive forecourt that is going to keep the consumers loyal in the long term. That may have worked 20 to 30 years ago, but now we understand that it's as much about, if not more, about that interior, inside experience consumers are having that's going to keep them local and supporters of the Cenex brand.
So also in our survey, we looked at the difference between frequent and infrequent customers, or as we called them, rare. And we categorized people by how many times a week or month they say they went to a convenience store. And what we found is the most price-sensitive ones were the ones least likely to come inside the store. Those who were repeat customers were less concerned about price. They were more concerned about all those other amenities. So as you look at the whole issue of gas prices, it's a drain on people's pocketbooks, but they will still find the place that they believe best meets their needs. And I want to transition to talking about another thing that's top of mind with everyone. We're looking at doing a small remodel with our deck, and we got a bid yesterday. And then you just paused, your jaw dropped when it went to the cost of materials, and the cost of materials is through the roof. You'll see that if you're doing any sort of home repair, one-off repairs, anything like that. So with this supply chain shortage, with this higher cost of goods, doing something on your own might be cost prohibitive. But I would imagine that when you're buying in bulk, when you're looking at hundreds of conversions, thousands of conversions, it's a lot more economical for anybody to get into a remodel or a refresh.
Yes. Obviously with the project, the size of ours in remodeling 1,450 stores over 4 years, supply chain concerns as with everybody in almost every segment of the market, we have seen issues with that. But I think our scale has certainly helped us negotiate through that in a way that's allowed us to keep our project on time and our marketers happy with the timelines that it's taking these projects to complete. We also have wonderful, long-standing vendor relationships that we've been able to leverage. And so, it's been much more constant communication than I would have expected. But because, again, we have those relationships and the scale of this project, we've had the ability to buy large amounts of inventory, which helps us stave off those supply chain concerns. That also helps us mitigate against kind of knee-jerk price increases in certain segments of raw materials. So we have seen some price adjustment, but by and large, we've been able to keep the things we need, keep the raw materials we need in stock and on hand. And we haven't had great disruption due to some of these supply chain constraints. Now, the other thing that I think has helped us in this project has been the fact that both the exterior remodel and forecourt portion of the LIFT initiative, as well as the facilitation of the financing that we're providing to get the interior portion of these projects completed, is all happening at CHS. It's all internal. And so when you can or have the ability to rely on internal businesses and internal resources, I think in times like this, you find that they can be more dependable. And at the very least, the communication is there so that you don't have any last minute surprises. So the issuance of all the loans that have gone towards these interior projects, they're all issued by CHS Capital. And so that's all done. It's all done in-house. One thing that we are so excited about is after a year and a half into the project, it was really hard for us to determine some good goals as to how much interior improvement projects are happening. The exterior ones are a little easier for us to predict. We have 1,400 sites. If we have 4 years, you can do some easy math and figure out, hey, I need 250 to 300 sites per year done on the outside. But we didn't know what to expect for these interior remodels. And we're very happy to announce that we've issued over $80 million worth of loans in the first year and a half. That is $80 million of improvements going directly into the communities that Cenex serves. So not only is this something that's good for the Cenex brand and the relevance of the Cenex brand with consumers, but we're putting people, local folks that live in these communities, to work with all of these interior remodel projects. Many times these are local subcontractors, local construction companies that are performing this work. And so, we're really proud of the way that this program has taken shape, not just from the standpoint of improving the Cenex brand, but really about bringing quality and value into these communities that we serve.
As we look at everything feels like it's been a pivot for the past 2 years with retailers, and it will continue to be a pivot. But I think it's really important to find a partner that can help you adjust to the next thing and look out long term for how macro or micro trends play out. So how can a retailer who's interested in learning more find out more about Lift and Cenex?
Well, we have a number of resources available for either folks that are currently within the Cenex family or prospective retailers who are not part of the Cenex family today to learn more about the Lift initiative. So one way is to simply visit our website, cenex.com/lift. That will give a highlight of the program, an overview of what it's all about, as well as examples of projects that have happened. So that is certainly one way to learn about the project. If there are folks out there listening that do have Cenex stores and they're interested in learning more, they can certainly reach out to their CHS sales representative. And that certainly would also be a great point of information. Folks can ask questions of their salespeople, and they're very qualified and ready to answer those questions.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Akhtar, in talking about some of these big trends and how you're looking at these in terms of not only dealing with and addressing today's consumer demands, but demands the next few years. So thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters. If you like this episode or any of the other episodes, please feel free to subscribe, become a fan, share the news.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.